Alright everybody, today's lesson, solving inequalities using addition and subtraction. So inequalities. Inequalities are similar to solving equations, so all the rules that we've been learning are still the same. But the big difference here is when we're doing inequalities is that we're not going to have an equal sign anymore. Alright, instead of having the equal sign, so here's the equal sign, we're not going to have that anymore. Okay, so what we are going to have instead of the equal sign are these what we call inequalities. Okay, so inequalities are going to be these things, where we have the less than symbol and the greater than symbol. So we're going to go ahead and write that down. The less than or the greater than symbols. Okay, but not only do we have those, okay, but then we also have a couple other ones. So we have, if we have this symbol with a little line under it, well, you still have the less than symbol there, but because that little line is under it, this is going to be less than or equal to. Less than or equal to. Okay, and then we have one other one which is similar to the greater than symbol. We have the greater than or equal to. So I'm going to write that down as well. Greater than or equal to. Okay, so instead of having an equal sign, we're going to have one of these symbols in there instead. So a less than symbol, greater than symbol, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Those are our four inequality symbols. Okay, now what we've been used to doing so far is something like this, where if I gave you an equation where it was 2x plus 5 equals 15. Okay, we've seen equations like this, and what we were able to do is show our work, and we're able to solve this problem, and we're able to figure out that x is going to end up equaling 5. Okay, and the big point here is when you have an equal sign like this, is that you're going to get one exact answer, meaning x has to be 5, because if I do the problem, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 5 is 15. X can only be 5, it can't be anything else. You get exactly one solution to the problem. Okay? Today, on the other hand, when we start using these inequality symbols, if I give us a new problem, okay, if I do x plus 5 is greater than 10, okay, where again, what we want to point out here is this. There is no equal sign here. Now we're going to have one of these inequality symbols. Okay, so we have the greater than symbol here. And what we're going to figure out is, I, again, need to figure out what x is. We're going to solve this just like solve an equation. I will get rid of the plus 5 by minusing 5. Okay, by doing this, by minusing 5. And whatever I did to one side, I would do to the other, giving me x is greater than 10 minus 5 is 5. So that's telling me now x has to be greater than 5. Okay, so that even tells me that the x isn't going to be 5. Okay, it has to be something bigger than 5. So there is more than one solution to this problem, because x could actually be 6, 7, 8, it could be 23, it could be 95. Okay, it could be anything that's greater than 5. Okay, it could even be decimals. It could be something like 7.5, or even a fraction, 10.5. Any number that is greater than 5 is going to be an answer here. Okay, because any number that's greater than 5, if I put it into this original inequality and I add it to 5, whatever x is plus 5 is going to give me something that's greater than 10. So that's the big difference between equations and inequality is, number one, the symbol. But our answer is, when we're doing equations, you get one exact answer, whereas when you're doing inequalities, you get multiple answers. So x is greater than 5, which really means anything larger than 5 works. Okay, first type of problem that they're going to ask us. Okay, example 1. Write an inequality to represent the situation. Well, this is no different than what we've been doing before, where we were taking sentences and changing them into mathematical equations. Well, now we're going to take these two sentences here, and we're going to write in inequality. So again, we're going to use one of the four symbols, either the greater than, the less than, the greater than or equal to, the less than or equal to. We're going to use one of those. So part A here. The speed limit is at least 55 miles per hour. So if you really think about that, if you're out driving, and you know that the speed limit is 55 miles per hour, and it says at least 55 miles per hour. Okay? So what that means, if you're talking about the speed here, Okay, I went ahead and changed part A here. I didn't like that question, so I changed it. Part A now says your speed can be at most 55 miles per hour. So we're going to go ahead and write something here. So the first thing I'm going to point out is you always got to know what we're talking about. Since we're talking about speed here, we're going to assign that to be our variable because we don't know how fast we can go, but we have to put something down here for a variable. And since we're talking about speed, usually the variable that we pick represents the words that we're talking about. So since it says speed here, I'm going to write down S for speed. And it says here, it can be at most 55 miles per hour. Okay, at most 55 miles per hour. So if we think about what that means, at most, that means it can't be any bigger than 55 degrees. It can be 55 degrees, it just can't be bigger. So if we're talking about our speed, that means that we're supposed to be able to go less than 55 degrees, or it can actually be exactly 55 degrees. So we're going to say our speed, since it has to be 55 miles per hour or less, we say that S is less than or equal to 55. And make sure you have that or equal to on there because it can be exactly 55 miles per hour or less. Okay. Part B, you must be at least 48 inches tall to ride the roller coaster. Okay, so this one's talking about how tall you have to be. So I'm going to put down T, okay, or actually I'm going to change that. Instead of T, I'm going to put H for height. Okay, and it's talking about how tall you have to be to ride the roller coasters. And since it says at least 48 inches, okay, so I'm going to write my 48 down here. Your height, well, someone that's only 40 inches tall, well, you're not going to be able to ride the roller coaster because you have to be 48 inches tall or taller. So your height has to be greater than 48 inches, or, again, it can be exactly 48 inches because it says at least 48. So 48 or more lets you ride that roller coaster. So there's the first type of question they're going to ask you to write these inequalities. Okay, second thing that's going to be new today is we're going to end up solving these equations. So they're going to do something like this, where you're doing x plus 9 is less than 12. Okay, and you're going to have to solve these, and you solve them just like we've always done. Okay, get rid of a plus 9 by minus 9. You do that to the other side. Okay, the x is still there. I still have my less than symbol. 12 minus 9 is 3. Okay, and that's what we're going to end up getting up here. Okay, the new part today is they're going to ask you to graph your solution. Okay, so here's what this means. Once you're able to actually get your final answer here, which I'm going to say is x is less than 3, there's one thing that they're going to ask us to do today. So I'm going to clear the ink here. We're just going to look at this. So we're going to pretend that this is what we got as our answer. X is less than 3. While graphing our solution, they want us to basically represent what that means. So what we need to do here is we're going to draw a number line. Okay, so I draw a number line where, okay, the number that's going to start in the middle is always going to be this number that's our answer here. So I'm going to put that 3 in the middle. Okay, now kind of the rule of thumb is this. If 3 is going to be in the middle, well, think of this like a number line then. Okay, the next two numbers above 3 is going to be 4 and 5. Okay, 3, 4, 5. The next two numbers smaller than 3 are 2 and 1. So that's always what I want us to do is we start by putting that 3 in the middle, and we always want to put two numbers bigger than it, two numbers less than it, and this should look just like a number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This 3 in the middle, we're going to put a big circle around it there. And now what we have to do is, since our answer here is saying that x can be anything less than 3, what we have to do on our number line is shade in the part that can be the answers. So there, we're saying, what can x actually be? Okay, well, which numbers are less than 3? Well, the 2 and the 1 are less than 3. So what you're going to do is just simply take your pencil, and you're going to just shade in. So you're going to color over this, making it nice and thick, all of those numbers there. Okay, we're just going to shade it in, including the arrow at the end here. We want to shade that in nice and thick, because even though this is a number line, it says, well, 2 and 1 are less than 3, but it actually keeps going in that direction. So other things that are less than 3 are like 0, -1, -2. The cool thing is that even in between here, so even in between numbers like 1 and 2, well, that's where your decimals and your fractions are going to come in. Like 1.5 is less than 3, or 1 2/3 is also less than 3. Okay? Then the last thing that I'm going to mention here is this right here. This circle. Okay? We have a choice. Do we want to keep that circle open like it is now, which means it's not filled in, or do I want to close it by actually taking this and filling it in? Okay, so we have that choice. Do we want that to be open like it is now, okay, or do I want to close it? And again, it depends on our answer. Since it says x is less than 3, we have to ask ourselves, Can x actually be 3? Okay, in this case the answer is no. 3 is not an answer. X cannot be 3 because it can only be things that are smaller than 3, things that are less than 3. Okay, so we keep that open because 3 is not actually an answer. Okay, next one here, part 2, and I'm going to change this to z is greater than or equal to -4. If we were to graph that, again, we're going to make our number line. Okay, we start with that number right there going in the middle. Okay, so I put my -4 there. That's going to have a circle around. Now, the next two numbers bigger than -4, -3 and -2, because then it'd keep going, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going to the left, the numbers are getting smaller, -5 and -6. This is saying that z can be anything greater than -4. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the side that is actually the numbers that are greater than -4. We're shading in what z can actually be. Well, z can be all of these numbers because these are the ones that are bigger than -4. Don't forget to shade in your arrow, very important, because it says if we keep going in that direction, all of those numbers are answers too. And then your final thought is, okay, is -4 an answer? And because this says greater than or equal to, that means it can be equal to -4. So in this case, -4 is a solution also, so we have to fill in the circle in the middle there too. Okay, and then everything to the right. Okay, so that's the last thing that we're going to do here when it says graph our solution. So solve it, then graph our solution. Okay, here's two of them. I'm going to do part A. I'm going to let you do part B. So example 2, solve the inequality, then graph your solution. Well, when it comes to solving this, part A, m plus 5 is greater than or equal to 10, we solve these exactly like we did equations. So I still can draw my little line down the center there. And I say I got to get m by itself. So I have to get rid of the plus 5. I do that by minusing 5. Since I subtracted 5 on the left and they slash killed, I subtract 5 on the right. Leave me with m is greater than or equal to 10 minus 5 is 5. Okay, so I get m can be anything that's greater than or equal to 5. Now it says then graph your solution. Okay, graph my solution. I have to make my number line. This 5 is going to go in the center with the circle around it. Two numbers bigger than it, 6 and 7. The next two numbers smaller than it, 4 and 3. And again, we're shading what m can actually be. Since it says m is the numbers that are greater than 5, so the numbers that are bigger than 5 go in this direction. Okay, including the arrow. So we got to fill in the arrow there. It's kind of a bad shade job there. Fill in the arrow. Okay, and then because we see this or equal to, that means m can be greater than 5 or it can actually equal 5. And because 5 can be equal to it, we fill in the circle, and then there's our final answer. So I want you to make sure you circle this answer, okay, and then you're going to graph your solution. Okay, part B, pause it, try it on your own. Okay, you're back. So put my dot down the center here. Got to get x by itself. Since that is x minus 12, I get rid of minus 12 by adding 12. They cancel out here. That gives me to add 12 on the other side. So I have a negative 10. I have a plus 12. Signs are different. I subtract. So 12 minus 10 gives me 2. And since there are more of the positives, end up being a positive 2. 2 is greater than x. Okay? So if 2 is greater than x, okay, we got to kind of think about this. If 2 is bigger than whatever x is, that means x are the numbers that are smaller than 2, like 1. It could be 0. It could be negative 1. Okay? X is anything that is less than 2. So when I make my number line here then, okay, I put that 2 in the middle, the circle around it. It's going to be an open circle because I don't see the or equal to. Okay? Numbers bigger, 3 and 4. Numbers smaller are going to be 1 and 0. So my number line looks like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and since this is saying 2 is bigger than whatever x is, that means x has to be anything smaller than 2. So I'm going to go ahead and shade the ones that are smaller than it here. Again, including the arrow on the end. And then it's going to be an open circle because I never heard of the or equal to. Okay, that's our lesson for today. So you're going to be solving these inequalities, and then you're going to be graphing your solution. Okay, good luck, everybody.